no?
Freeze! I'll shoot! How do you know about that? Aren't you Maria?
When we was kids, Jenny and I were broke, but she always found a way to have a good time. One time for my birthday, she snuck us into a roller rink. Some kid was having a party and it was so big, they didn't notice a little girl helping herself to some cake and some presents. All for me. Best birthday I ever had. She snuck us into movie theaters, con our way into bars, whatever. And whenever we got busted, she was just as good at getting us out as she was getting us in. She could con her way out of anything. But I should have known. Luck like that can't last forever.
Once you step foot into a dark place, it's always with you. You can no longer hide from its influence. It's within you now. None of that was as true for anyone more than our good friend Jackie Estacado, the mobster that holds within him the darkness. The sequel no one truly expected to exist, The Darkness 2, this time with original developer Starbreeze standing down and developer Digital Extremes stepping in, sees Jackie return to deal with his demons. Stepping away from the more grounded look and world of the original, the sequel injects a bit of the comics into the games, but is it a successful venture? It's not every day where the sequel is so drastically different from the original. Was Digital Extremes right to implement more of the fantasy comic book elements, or should they have stuck to the grit, keeping Jackie as the only supernatural thing in the game? Last time, we left Jackie a very broken man. Spoilers for the first game, though you are watching a review for the sequel, we last saw Jackie with a dead girlfriend, a bunch of dead corrupt cops, and a dead Uncle Polly. This allowed the darkness to grow stronger within him, but he was somehow able to shut it away after becoming the head of the Franchetti family. Now, a couple years later, the family is doing well again and Jackie is the big shot. That is, until he is attacked while at a restaurant and plenty of his boys are taken out. The attackers also got a good hit on our boy as well, forcing him to release the demon. The darkness is freed in a spectacular display of violence, and now it's up to Jackie to find answers on who his attackers are and what they want. Turns out, things aren't going to be as simple as last time, as the attackers are after the darkness itself. It's a much more interesting story that is better paced than the original, with some fantastic emotional and melodramatic moments. There is also one section, similar to the Hell section from the last game, that is just so interesting that you need to keep playing to see what it's about. There's also a lot more world building in general here, with collectibles offering a glimpse at what this world's version of history was like. Spoiler alert, the darkness was pretty heavily involved. Without getting too deep into the proper story for spoiler reasons, Jackie's second adventure is a roller coaster ride, one he's not about to be let off of. Jackie's signature dual-wielding style has returned with significant upgrades this time. Instead of being a janky but lovable shooter adventure, The Darkness 2 is a proper shooter, both feel and control-wise, and its use of the darkness is far more fun than in the clunky original. Referred to as quad-wielding, Jackie can wield two guns, one in each hand, and then both arms of the darkness. The guns are controlled with the front shoulder buttons and the darkness with the back two, making for an elegant use of all four buttons. One arm is used for grabbing and the other is used for slashing, and you can combine both of these with your firearms to make for some truly spectacular gunplay. Shooting in general feels much better this time around, feeling more like a Call of Duty game, and the gameplay in general is much faster and much more violent. The darkness can grab objects in the environment, such as metal bars, car doors, barrels, guns, and even stunned enemies, and you can then toss them at faraway enemies with ease, often scoring a gory kill. You also have a Darkling with you, only this time he's much more of a character and can be used to distract enemies, be tossed at enemies, and used for stealth segments at specific parts of the game. For each kill or collectible found, you gain points that you then can spend to upgrade your powers or abilities. More points are earned for more complex kills, so shooting is not always your most profitable option, enticing you to mix it up. When grabbing an enemy, the darkness can either toss them like other objects or execute them, with 4 options to eventually choose from, and different executions will give different effects, such as regained health or ammo. It's a really fun and diverse combat system, reminding one of something like Bulletstorm. But unlike the first game, that's all there is here. The game is quite linear with a short story and a handful of online co-op missions that can be played solo, using unique characters with their own abilities. Overall, the gameplay is a massive improvement and still stands as a strong example of excellent first-person shooter combat, something few games have managed to pull off outside of Doom. If it wasn't already apparent to you while watching this, The Darkness 2 forgoes the gritty, realistic look of the original and opts for a comic book look to, well, match the comic book origin of the series. Things are far richer in color, the violence is more spectacular, and characters stand out a lot more. There is much less standing around looking awkward also. The game looks a lot more polished than the original did, which isn't saying too much, but the game does look great. Everything is colorful and full of detail, the music is great, and the voice work is fantastic. Mike Patton returns to play the Darkness and puts on a much angrier and much more unhinged performance with tons of screams, yells, and varying levels of creepiness, sometimes in the same sentence. It's much different than the original's performance, but it's a lot more desperate, giving it a different feel, one that is excellently portrayed. Jackie's voice actor is different, but I feel it suits the energy of the story more than the monotone, slow voice of the original actor. Jackie's monologues return but cap off the beginning of levels, giving them a more structured feel, but it works out best for them. The atmosphere and feel they bring is stronger than ever, and the writing and performance are excellent. Some of my favorite lines in video games come from these. They are always exciting to see. As with every game, this game does have its own share of flaws. While the gameplay has been vastly improved, they did remove anything that wasn't shooting and walking. Gone are the interconnected hubs and world to explore. Say hello to corridors and waves of bad guys. It works for the story, especially since the levels are nice looking and the bad guys bleed real good, but it is a shame. Combat can get repetitive since you do it so often, and with the slow accumulation of points, you'll be waiting on some of the cooler powers. Of course, neither of these things are deal breakers. Pointing a gun at things and shooting them does get repetitive, that's just the nature of things, and at least the Darkness's demon arms keep things from getting too stale. What is a deal breaker to some, however, is how damn short the game is. The first game wasn't long by any stretch, but this game is shorter than the Lord of the Rings trilogy. In the time it takes to finish the story here, you'll probably just be wrapping up the Two Towers. It's criminally short, and it's the biggest weakness the game has. Back then, it was deal-breaking. Now, with how inexpensive the game is to acquire, it's not that big of a deal, as the game may be short, but it's sweet enough to force a visit to the dentist. At the end of Jackie's spiral ever downwards, further into darkness, lies a great game with a major flaw. This is honestly one of the best shooters I have personally played, with only a handful even reaching its heights. The fantastic, frantic, fluid and fun combat, vibrant, attractive and bloody visuals, and engaging and relentless plot are truly only let down by the length of the journey. It really is too short, though it doesn't take it all away from the game. The emotional journey, along with Mike Patton's constant, agonizing screams and not quiet whispers in your ear, more than make up for the short runtime. Sadly, this game was left on a cliffhanger of an ending thanks to low sales, which is beyond a shame, as this is one of the finest crafted combat systems in a shooter alongside something like Bulletstorm. It just needed some more polish and variety, and you'd have a bona fide masterpiece on your hands. Regardless of the cliffhanger and short runtime, Jackie puts holes in a very dark 9 out of 10. The short campaign just makes it more replayable and lets it all sink in a bit more. There is always time for Jackie's return. I'll wait forever to see him again.